So we're going to talk and celebrate and look ahead to Spaghetti Junction making its UK premiere on the 15th of March at Manchester International Film Festival. Before we discuss bits about the film, could you give us a synopsis or an overview of the film?
Yeah. Spaghetti Junction is about a disabled teenager in the deep south of America who encounters this otherworldly traveler who comes into her life one night, and they go on this journey together. And it's a journey of healing and also romance and also conflict with this like strange cult that seems to be kind of hunting them. Uh, so, yeah.
Yeah, it's a very intriguing premise, and it was one of the things that kind of caught my eye initially from the MANIFF program. So the film stars Kate Hughes, real life amputee triathlon runner. Can you tell us a bit about the casting of Kate?
Yeah, so, well, first of all, to start things off, she happens to be doing a study abroad program in Glasgow. So she'll be coming down to the premiere. So she'll be part of the Q&A and people can meet her, which will be exciting, which is just happenstance that she happened to be over there already. So she can just take the train down. But yeah, I mean, I think, she is obviously a key element in the film, being the lead and also being, the casting for this film took probably between 1.5 years and 2 years to find her. I had written the script based on some personal experiences from my life and with a friend of mine growing up who was an amputee. So I kind of had this, vision in my head of what August, the lead of my film, would be. And in my head, it was kind of like Sissy Spacek circa Badlands, so like 1971 Sissy Spacek, as far as that sort of introverted, kind of quiet dreaminess, sort of aloof, but also this sort of burning kind of intelligence in the eyes where she's observing the world around her. So, that's already kind of a tall order, I think, to find, but then also finding that type of person who also happens to be an amputee. It was, a challenge, to say the least. So I started reaching out to children's hospitals and amputee clinics and prosthetic clinics and amputee camps and all of these places kind of around the US and Canada and even in the UK, trying to put out the casting call to see, who might answer. And also, as far as the financing went for the film, some of the conversations were, probably to get a well-known actor into the film to play that part and then paint out her leg in post, I'd be able to get the financing to make the film. But for me, that would defeat the purpose of making the film at all, because I wanted this authenticity and I wanted her to bring soul to the film, that would be unmistakable and not just some visual effect with, some kind of phony approach to it. So, but, saying that, then I sort of created this challenge and this obstacle that, took about 1.5 years. And I was kind of, to be honest, I think starting to sort of feel like I would give up because I had reached out to so many plays. I had had a few submissions, but nothing really felt like, the one. And then kind of towards the end of the casting journey, suddenly I did get this tape in from Kate, who lived in Queens, New York. And the second I saw her kind of read just a few lines from the script, it almost, it put like tingles down my spine and even got a bit teary-eyed, looking at her. I'm like, oh my God, that's her. That's who I've been looking for. So I immediately flew to New York and kind of had a meeting with her. She was 17 at the time. So, I had to bring her mom on board as well. And luckily her mom was really supportive of the script and of her daughter being in the film. And they actually moved down here to Atlanta, which is where the Spaghetti Junction neighborhood is in the film, to kind of spend about a month before we started shooting to sort of integrate into this world and kind of, go to the local high school and the diners and the grocery store and spend time here and dream in that house and live in that house, cook in that house. With also the dad or the character, the actor who plays her dad, Cam McHarg. So it was about, once I found her, bringing her down into this world and sort of trying to immerse her into this world, which is very different than, Queens, New York, where she was from.
Yeah. It sounds like the script took a number of different versions then over the sort of pre-production of the film. Was there anything in maybe early drafts of the script that you couldn't end up including for whatever reason, or did it kind of stay true to the vision all the way through?
I think as far as the story points and the kind of, the macro journey that happens in the film, that pretty much stayed intact from the beginning, which I think I wrote the script in like 2016, 2017, and we shot in 2019. But definitely we had some consulting from other amputees, and then Kate putting in her own personal experiences of, like, there's a scene in the film where she wakes up in the middle of the night and sort of stumbles out of bed because she forgets that she only has one leg. And apparently that's a pretty, and as you can imagine, that's a pretty common thing that happens when you wake up in the middle of the night or you're in the shower and you kind of just start to space out. You have that sort of muscle memory that just sort of, tells you still have a leg to land on if you were to step out of the shower or get out of bed at night. So trying to incorporate some of her personal experiences and some of the consulting and other people I talked to and through interviews with amputees, recent amputees especially, and trying to integrate some of those subtleties and nuances into the film. But I think other than that, I mean, as far as the basic kind of love story and premise of the journey, pretty much stayed intact, I think, from the beginning.
Good. You mentioned that you shot in 2019. Were you affected by the pandemic with post production?
Yeah, with post a lot. Strangely enough, I was doing all my post, or the plan was to do all of my posts on the film in London, because of friends I have and some commercial work I've done over there and connections. I had a great crew of sound designers and visual effects artists and colorists and people that were excited about the script. But then so we shot the film in summer of 2019. By the time we kind of started to look at the footage and get everything going, and I would already put my house up for rent, and like my family and I were ready to move to London to start this 6-month process of post. That's I think that was March of 2020, which is when the borders shut down. So basically canceled the plane tickets, and my wife and I and our kid, I had one kid at the time, we basically had to settle in to a little apartment in California, and then I started doing posts through Zoom. So I was still able to kind of keep my connections in London, but I was working on London time while being in California. So it was like a 8-hour time difference. So it had me sometimes waking up at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and editing or coloring or whatever it was at the time. But yeah, I mean, honestly, thank God for Zoom. The fact that you and I are even talking right now from across the ocean is pretty cool. But the fact that I was able to do all of the posts on my movie from California while it was all happening in London was a miracle. I think if the pandemic had happened, a couple of years earlier, when internet connections weren't as strong or this technology didn't exist in the way it does now, I probably would have just put the film on hold until now. And only now I think can we go to each other's countries. So
yeah.
But yeah, I was very lucky for Zoom. So yeah, everything happened over about a year with visual effects and editing and coloring and sound design and all of that. So yeah, I was affected massively,
Wow,
but only in the post process. Yeah.
So I watched the film last week, and I must admit, some of the most interesting and striking imagery in this film, in anything that I've seen in a long time. So these sort of really sort of grand aerial shots of Spaghetti Junction, the expressive colors, the tightly framed shots of emotion. How much did you have in your head before you then started collaborating with Christian, the cinematographer? Was it all kind of your vision, or did you kind of come together and work out maybe a storyboard beforehand?
Yeah, so I mean, coming from the way I sort of learned filmmaking over the last 10 years or so is really through commercial work, music videos and commercials. So, usually on a commercial, you have the budget to, hire a storyboard artist, and obviously that, they translate what they think is your vision into storyboards. But for me, we had, a very small amount of money on this film. So I just started drawing it myself, and I'm not that great at drawing, so it was mostly like stick figures and stuff, but I was able to at least to sort of explore the angles that I felt like would capture the emotion of the scene in the most simple way possible. So yeah, it was my first time actually storyboarding myself. Christian is a cinematographer who I had never worked with before, but he happened to be based here in Atlanta. He was on a list of cinematographers that I kind of always wanted to work with, and when I realized that I was going to be shooting this film in Atlanta, I was like, man, it'd be really cool to work with this guy. And then I found out that he was actually based here, which is a miracle, because he was able to bring his crew and he was here, so we didn't have to fly him out and all that stuff. So he probably would have been my top choice anyway, but the fact that he happened to be based here was very cool. So him and I started early on with the little kind of stick figure storyboards that I had created, going into more detail. And where he really brought his touch was with the lighting. And he had this very painterly approach to things. And we looked at a lot of Tarkovsky films and we looked at, you know, Sean Baker's The Florida Project. We looked at a lot of different things that sort of this mix of kind of painterly and cinematic, and then also sometimes where it can feel very handheld and almost docu style. And depending on the mood of that scene, we would try to figure out the language. And sometimes, you know, to be honest, we would just be limited by, wow, we've got 10 minutes to shoot the scene or we're not going to get it. So it was about being a little bit more raw and just sort of trying to get to the essence of what the scene was. And sometimes it worked out really beautifully. And other times, you know, we found a way to cut it in a way that still told the story. But yeah, we did lots of things. And what Christian brought to it was this idea of like always having movement in the frame. So when she's like, you know, 80% of the film probably happens in her living room and in her bedroom of this little house they live in. So it was about always keeping the scenes kind of fresh and feeling nature and feeling something kind of bigger happening, or this cosmic world. And that happens through sound design as well, as you always hear this kind of rumble of Spaghetti Junction, which is, you know, these crisscrossing highways and freeways, and then you've got trains in the distance. So you always feel this kind of rumble of transportation, cars and trains and stuff, that I think gives it this almost otherworld eerie kind of rumble. I was really inspired by Eraserhead, David Lynch's first film, you know, that has that sort of eerie industrial rumble behind the whole film. So yeah, but yeah, basically working with that, and then also having just like branches outside of the window. So you always have just shadows that are kind of dancing around the room, and you've got this rumble of, you know, the highway. And I think when you mix those two things together, suddenly you have, you know, a daughter and a dad eating a grilled cheese sandwich at a table, but somehow you add something to it that, you know, that you feel the outside world a little bit more, and you feel this sort of uneasiness, or the fact that something bigger is maybe brewing underneath this sort of, you know, mundane scene of just a dad and a daughter eating a sandwich. But or at least that's what we were trying to go for, you know. So
yeah. I mean, you mentioned about the mood and the atmosphere of the film. One thing that I think the film does really, really well is create that kind of mood and atmosphere. And I think one integral piece of that jigsaw was the score that was done by Health. What made you approach Health?
So Health are friends of mine, who we had collaborated with. We kind of came up in LA around the same time, where they were kind of coming out with some of their first music, and they were playing at this very cool club called The Smell in downtown LA at the time, which was this kind of punk DIY noise experimental place. And I would go there and see them play, and always was inspired by their sounds and the music, and would always see kind of images in my head. And we ended up connecting loosely over the next couple of years. And then basically I ran into them in Italy by of all chances, in Bologna, Italy. My wife and I were there pushing our toddler in a stroller down the road, and we just happened to see them. They happened to be on tour. We were in London actually, and we happened to just pop down there for the weekend, and happened to pass them. They were on tour and they were playing in Bologna. It was like some weird back alley. We were taking a shortcut to go like between two buildings, and I was like, I know those guys. Wait a minute, that's Health. And we started chatting, and I told them about the film that I was writing and stuff, and they were like, hey, that sounds really cool. You know, we'd love to work with you again. We'd worked together on a few other projects in the past. And yeah, I sent them the script a few months later, and they started kind of sending some demos, and we started building some stuff and having this like big folder of references. And yeah, they really, honestly, they came back with something that was different than we had talked about, but it was better than what we had talked about. And I think sometimes when you trust your collaborators, you can sometimes just let them go. And you know, sometimes I have to hold myself back from like micromanaging, but with those guys, I didn't, and I'm very happy that I didn't, because they came back with this whole world of stuff that was different, but added like an emotion to it, like you said, that I think you know, elevated some of these scenes. This shoegazy kind of dreaminess, and it, you know, some of the references were like Slow Dive and My Bloody Valentine, but also that weird kind of industrial, almost horror, cosmic horror kind of thing, and they really mixed it up in this way that yeah, I think was very effective. So yeah, it was an honor to work with those guys on my first film, especially.
Yeah. We've mentioned before that, you know, this isn't a review podcast. I would share my thoughts on the film, but if I'm honest, I kind of want everyone to sort of implore them and urge them to go to the festival and check out the film itself. But to mention the opening sequence, it's quite the opening sequence, having a middle-aged man aggressively riding a pink BMX down the road. What was the intention of including that as like the first thing that we see?
Yeah. So a lot of the scenes in the film are things that I've seen, and you know, coming here, I moved from California to this place called Spaghetti Junction. Basically, it's called Doraville, Georgia. It's right outside of Atlanta, and yeah, it's such a weird mishmash of characters from all walks of life. There's a huge, like massive different immigrant communities here, whether it's Korean or Iranian or Japanese and Mexican and people from all over the world, all sort of living in this neighborhood. And then you also have this kind of old working class industrial area from 50 years ago, and all the factories have kind of shut down now. So you have this kind of blighted, burned out old shopping malls and stuff that are there underneath the shadows of like old factories and stuff. And then you've got these like Mexican grocery stores with like neon lights and bright colors and stuff. And so it's this kind of interesting, colorful world. And then you've got, you do have drugs and you have a lot of blighted kind of things. But yeah, I saw this guy one day who was on probably a stolen little pink bike. And I think maybe that launched that character in my head of like, where is that guy going? What is he doing? I would love to know like what that dude's mission is, where he's riding to so intently or urgently. And I think that's where that kind of was birthed. But there was something about that striking thing, or it's comical even. It's like starting the film with like, what does this guy do? Is this a serious film? Is this a comedy?
Definitely.
Like, but I think that's kind of fun, because it's I wanted to open it up with something that would just kind of make you start asking questions of what am I getting myself into by watching this thing? So
which you did do. So what's this guy up to?
yeah. Well, that's the idea. So that's good.
I just personally just wanted to know what your kind of reasoning for targeting Manchester International Film Festival was.
Yeah. So I was looking for the right place to have the international premiere of the film. So I premiered the film in the US at the Austin Film Festival a few months back. And then it just seemed like the right fit. I think I sent over the link to the film, and they got back pretty early, and they expressed interest, like, authentic interest. I think it is, the film, like you said, like you don't know what you're getting into. And I think for some people, that's exciting, and for other people it's an immediate pass. It's just like, fuck, I don't want to watch this, like, what, I don't know what's going on here, it's too many genres being mixed up or whatever. But for some people that's an exciting thing. So and those are the people that I'm excited to talk about my film with. So the fact that they responded warmly to the film was exciting for me. So that made me say, yeah, this is the place to go. I think this is going to be the right fit. So I'm very excited. I've never been to Manchester, so I've spent a lot of time in London before the pandemic, over the last few years before that, but never really, because I was always working in London, I never really got a chance to explore outside of London. So I'm looking forward to taking the train up to Manchester when I fly in, and then spending, about a week there to meet people and walk around and just take in the sights and meet other filmmakers and stuff. So yeah, it's an exciting opportunity for sure.
I mean, I'm biased, but it's a very good place to be. It's a very good festival to be. Yeah,
I know it. It definitely looks like it. I'm excited.
So in terms of you and your kind of professional life, what's next? What have you got? Any other films in the pipeline that you're looking forward to?
Yeah, I've got a few scripts that I'm kind of slowly feeding. Different ideas kind of bubble up for each one, and then I like become very focused on one for like a week, and then I get an idea for the other script, and then I shift back to that one. So it's not probably the most efficient way to work on scripts, but yeah, I think I'm waiting to see where the wind blows me a little bit. I'd love to shoot a film in the UK. I have a script that I could potentially shoot in the UK. I have another script that I would love to shoot in Atlanta. I have one that I'd love to shoot in South America. But it's about opportunity to where people kind of want to give me the opportunity, because obviously it takes the economy of means, of resources to actually make the film. So I think I'm looking for the right distributors and people who respond to the film and maybe are interested in what I might be cooking up, and I'd love to have conversations with different collaborators and see, where the wind blows. But I've definitely got these scripts, and I'm trying to see which one. They're all kind of burning inside of me, and I'm waiting to see which one kind of takes wings, and kind of becomes a film. And the other ones that just sit on my hard drive for a couple of years, probably. But we'll see.
Well, hopefully you might have some of those conversations at the festival.
I hope so. Yeah. That would be great. Yeah.
So just to kind of recap and to kind of, let everyone know again. So Spaghetti Junction makes its UK premiere on Tuesday, the 15th of March at Manchester International Film Festival. If the listeners wanted to, where could they find you on social media?
Yeah, so I think probably the best kind of landing pad would be to go to spaghettijunctionfilm.com. And then there you've got the trailer, and you've got information about the film. You've got screening listings, as well as links to the Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and that kind of stuff, so you can kind of stay up to date with, you know, press stuff and where it might be screening next. So yeah, but yeah, it's on Instagram and Twitter and all that, but probably spaghettijunctionfilm.com is probably the best place to go.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much for your time. Much appreciated.
Yeah, absolutely.
And good luck with the festival. Good luck with the film. And
thank you.
Yeah, have a nice one.
For sure. Yeah, it's been nice talking to you, so I appreciate it.